It's time for the book interview.
Boring books, that's all.
Books? Are you nuts?
No, nothing boring here. MoneyLife will bring you a book that is out right now. A book that will help you learn more about your finances.
A book that would make Ulysses look like it was written in crayon.
Smart books by smart authors that can help you decide how to best manage your money.
It's not a book! It's a weapon!
It's a weapon against making the kind of mistakes that people make in their financial lives. MoneyLife brings you the books, the authors, and the information to protect you from these missteps and help to keep your financial future secure.
I read your book. I liked it very, very much.
Don't just take it on faith. Hear the authors talk in depth about their books and give you the facts and figures to back up their information.
It's faith. It's the flower of light in the field of darkness. It's giving me the strength to carry on. You understand?
Is that from your book?
No, it's Johnny Cash, live at Hope from prison.
Hey, it's book interview time here on MoneyLife, and I'm joined right now by Keisha Blair. She is the author of Holistic Wealth, 32 Life Lessons to Help You Find Purpose, Prosperity, and Happiness. Now, holistic wealth and holistic wealth planning, that's not necessarily something we talk about a lot on this show, but I have to point out that Keisha's book is actually one of two that talks about holistic wealth and holistic planning, although they are very, very different books. But we are going to be talking about both of them because they bring up a lot of interesting points. Now, Keisha Blair's book really is an expansion of an article that she wrote, or she's expanding on the teachings of an article she wrote about the death of her husband, who died at age 34. If you want to learn more about her, the book, which is out today, so just released today, it's KeishaBlair.com. She's on Twitter at Keisha O. Blair. And for what you want to learn more about, we're going to start right here because I'm pleased to say, Keisha Blair, welcome to MoneyLife.
Thank you so much for having me. It's launch day. I'm excited. I am so happy to be here.
So let's talk just a little bit about your definition of holistic wealth, because like I said, my audience is going to be exposed to your definition and another one in the not too distant future, because it's not the only book that uses that phrase. But holistic kind of means whatever it means to each practitioner of it. So explain when you're talking about holistic wealth what you mean.
Right. Okay. And so I mentioned this in the book that, millennials have been wanting to redefine this notion of traditional wealth, this notion of wealth being defined by your net worth or by your bank account. And, we've expanded that definition in this book to wealth not being only defined by those things in monetary terms, but also in terms of your emotional and spiritual health, in terms of your physical health, and in terms of, these key building blocks that requires, building on each other to create a holistically wealthy lifestyle. So it's not just money, it's not just being well physically, but it's being well emotionally and mentally as well.
Yeah, I mean, holistic thinking is basically trying to think of the parts of something as all being interconnected, so you can't do well for the whole unless all the parts are doing well. And then from a medicinal standpoint, when somebody uses holistic to mean that, it's basically trying to treat the whole person as opposed to just treating whatever might be ailing them. So ideally what we're talking about is that you're building wealth into an overall picture that says, hey, we can't make you wealthy if we don't make you basically wealthy in spirit and in family and in all these other things, right?
Right, exactly. And that stems from, as you mentioned, the viral article that I wrote, because based on my experience, and I have experience, Chuck, with walking out of a hospital with my husband's belongings in a white plastic bag, and very, very expensive belongings, like a wedding ring, jewelry, stuff like that. And so those things are perishables. That wealth, that financial wealth can disappear, but we're left with other kinds of wealth. And so it's being rounded to know that, each of these builds on each other, and that we have to be aware that when we talk about wealth, it's more than just money.
When people hear use of the word holistic, and if they take a quick look at your book, they're going to see that it talks about spiritual aspects and more. But it's not overtly spiritual. I mean, that's part of what I want people to understand. I was interested in it because I'm always looking at any approach that talks about how people can do better with their money and their life. That's why this show is called Money Life. But some people will hear this and think, wait, I have to be a spiritual person. I have to be a deep thinker, whatever it might be, in order to appreciate this. How would you answer them?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. So the book delves into that, but it delves into it in a way where the spirituality actually comes from what you define it to be. So, when I talk about spiritual self-renewal, I'm talking about engaging in activities where you just step back to renew and refresh yourself and to renew. And so it's not going deep, as you mentioned, into, like what we would generally think of in terms of spirituality. It's basically saying, sometimes we have to take a step back and really renew and refresh ourselves so we can think clearly, so we can make decisions better. And so that's kind of the framework for that aspect of the book.
Now, look, we don't wish bad things on anyone, but as you point out, you lost your husband at age 34. You lived through a time that's as bad as pretty much anybody can imagine about anything. If you were to go through that differently, if you were to go through that again, or you were able to go back and experience it for the first time now, how would it be different, knowing what you know now, knowing what you've put together in the book, from how it was then?
It's funny, because that's a great question. Because, I started this journey, and let's say before my husband died, I started implementing aspects of holistic wealth before. I never thought of it that way, but now that I've been on this journey, I can see that clearly. And most of it were the money aspects of holistic wealth. Making sure that you had things in place to make you financially resilient and financially resourceful. I'd taken care of that, and that's one reason why I was able to weather the storm the way I did. The part that I had to really work out was the second part of it, going through the process, taking a step back and reassessing my life and how I wanted it to turn out. And so knowing what I know now, if I were to go through it again, I think it's colored by those two views. And just the fact that I had been such a staunch money planner before, which is just a part of who I am, as an economist. It's kind of my thinking. And so I think that part, if I, let's say that didn't happen, and as your question states, I think that part would have always been there. And then the second part, which is what, most of us kind of, lag behind. I know most of your listeners by now are quasi money experts in terms of what they've picked up on the show. But there's some aspects that, we might be lagging on, like the emotional part and dealing with that and knowing how to deal with that. So that's kind of my answer to it, is that that part would have been there and would always be there because of my personality and what I am kind of trained in, what I know to do. It's it's become a part of me. And the second part are these other aspects that I realize are so important for living a holistically wealthy lifestyle, the parts that we don't think about all the time. Because we're constantly thinking about money, but we're not constantly thinking about what do I do to take care of my emotional health. So that's the thing.
Now, the book, of course, talks 32 life lessons to help you find purpose, prosperity, and happiness. We don't want to give away all of them, but I want you to give away one. I want you to pick basically what amounts to the lesson that maybe is not the most important, but is the one that kind of makes you happiest when you talk about it.
Wow. That's a great question. It's hard for me to do as an author because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're asking me to pick a chapter. And so I have so many favorites. But I want to talk about a personal mission, because when I think about that defined my path forward in terms of this setback that I had. I had to redefine my life again. And I had to move forward knowing that I'm a different person now because of what I've been through. But here's how I want to make a positive contribution. And here's how I want to set my path on a life that would help others and that would help me to serve humanity. And so when we talk about personal mission statements, that's wrapped up in that, wrapped up in your values. And so if you were a spectator at your own funeral, what would you want everyone there saying? What's the one theme that you'd want to hear resonate throughout the whole thing? And so that's what I've used to define my life going forward. And so one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about helping others with, their money and dealing with money is because of what I've been through and what I know. I want to help women. I want to help everyone gain a sense of their own financial identity and what they need to move forward. And so that's the one that I would say, today on launch day is that having that personal mission.
Yeah. And I should point out to folks that, look, the book, it would certainly help you if you were in those conditions, if you were in a situation similar to what Keisha had, but it will help you whether you're in that situation or not. It's not about a book about loss. It is a book about life. It's really interesting. It is holistic wealth. And if you want more information, well, you can go get it at Keisha Blair's website. It's KeishaBlair.com. She's on Twitter at Keisha O. Blair. The book is out, and in fact, we got a couple copies to give away, so stick around to the end of today's show, and after we talk with Krishna Mamani from Invesco about investing, we'll talk about holistic wealth again when we give away a couple of copies. Meanwhile, Keisha Blair, thanks so much for joining me to talk about it.
It was great being here on launch day. I couldn't think of a better place, Chuck, so thank you so much. That's Keisha Blair, everybody. Again, KeishaBlair.com. Okay, we're halfway in to the November 5th edition of Money Life, but halfway? Come on, we are just getting warmed up. So settle back and relax. We've got a really interesting Survey Says segment coming up. And then, like I said, Krishna Mamani from Oppenheimer, well, formerly Oppenheimer, now Invesco. He'll be here talking money and markets. We're living the money life, and we'll be back to it in just a moment.